great coach, I think, and a very humorous one as well. Sometimes sometimes you call yourself an angry coach, but I think that's more with glimten i ögat, as we say, like with a lot of joy behind it.
Yeah.
So please welcome Mathias.
Thank you so much, Jenny, and yeah, welcome to my talk. Uh, it's gonna be. I love the fun and games, but what we're gonna talk about today is actually a little bit more mid of a business focused talk. So I'll keep my business face on for today. So this is a talk for people who are maybe a little bit more senior in the organization, and you're working on creating the right conditions for your product organization so that you can set them up for success. And when we're talking about product organization and what product is trying to accomplish, we're really talking about building a new product. It's really about creating a new foundation for our future business. So we're stepping into the prosperous future through work we're doing to create something new that we can offer customers in the future, right? So the topic of my talk, you can see on the screen here, it's management pitfalls of product development. It's really about how do we set up product for success without misstepping. So I'm going to share with you some of the some common management missteps that I have seen, and some of my colleagues as well that I've talked to a little bit as well before creating this talk. And these are going to be based on my observations. So not necessarily a comprehensive list of every misstep that you can make, but some of the most common ones that are also very high impact. So if you have any questions through this talk, please add them to the chat that you see on the left hand side here. Very interactive session here. We're live, right? Keep that in mind. But if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them at the end. So to give this talk a little bit of a structure, I've chosen to divide it up into three levels of potential areas of missteps. So the first one is division of responsibilities in your organization between product and the other areas. The second is how you give your product organization a good direction. And the third is operationalization, meaning the day-to-day multiple disciplines of how we actually do work to make that product potential become something real. And yeah, you can say it's kind of three different levels of how we organize, right? The first is, what should my product organization be responsible for in our organization? And how does that relate to all the other things that are done in our organization? Maybe we have sales, marketing, human resources, whatnot, right? So who should be responsible for what? So that's the first level. I'll share with you two common missteps there. The second is within, if you will, the city metaphor here, right? We have a city center that works with product. We have other areas of the city and the organization as well doing other things. How do we give our city block, our product organization, clear direction? So by product here today in this talk, I include if you have product and IT, if you have product engineering, I'm lumping all that together. It's the people who do the work to create the new products for the future business, right? All of those. How do we give them clear direction? I'm going to share with you three common missteps there. And then the operationalization, meaning the day-to-day activities. If you go down to the square level of the city, how do we integrate multiple disciplines? How do we have shared rhythms there? And how do we create our way of working and get the good sauce that creates the product, that creates the impact we want to see for our customers, that brings in value back, right? So those are the three levels. So let's jump right in at the highest level. So what's product responsible for, and what's other areas of the organization responsible for? So the first misstep I would like to highlight here is it's common that product is accountable for developing and delivering new products, but they're not accountable for making sure that those products are profitable or have the potential for margin, that we're actually going to realize a profitable product that we can run a business on. Keep in mind what I said in the beginning. Is this new product going to be the backbone that we can run a future business on or not. And whose responsibility is this? Oftentimes, this is not the product's organization's responsibility. So example of this type of organization can be, you maybe have had a lot of sales and marketing focus in your organization in the recent past because you've had a big product, and it's been really about getting access to more areas of the market, and kind of getting the product out there, and working and converting what the potential of the product is in terms of accessibility, network effects, right? So the assumption here when you have this type of organization is, if we get a new good product, we can make it profitable when it's available, right? So the fallacy here is a bit like thinking about new product as a future commodity, and all we need to do is get access to these, and we can kind of make profitability happen, because we can kind of combine that access with access to customers and markets, right? And networks of scale. And this is problematic because this is not really how really strong products are built. They're not built from this viewpoint, really. The second piece here is the second big common situation is that we don't really have any clear guidance between product and the rest of the organization. It's not been clearly negotiated what the business success criteria are for new products that are under development. So, for example, we've talked about what we'd like to see products accomplish, and we talk about what market it is. We haven't really quantified in terms of, for example, revenue. What do we require from a business perspective? What properties does a new product have to have for us to consider it be successful? It can be more things than revenue, but usually this is very much hidden in the dark. It's kind of implied or assumed. People have, in reality, very different expectations, which makes it hard to evaluate where we are with new products, right? So some of the consequences of this, why is this problematic? Well, the first major consequence is that what you get from this type of setup is a product organization that's really not really connected. They're disjointed from actually validating value. And what I mean by value is, are new customers willing to pay for this new products that we are investing in? The answer to that question usually gets answered very late, and not by product, right? Or with product that's only like a co-player or something like that, right? And the second problem is, and of course that's highly risky, right? So we're putting a lot of investment into something without necessarily knowing if we can reach business success, right? Or revenue success, or engagement success, whatever your successment criteria are. The second problematic consequence is we're really having a really weak investment guardrails. So, for example, if we don't really have a clear idea, if organization and product are not connected and aligned on where we need to get for a product investment or a product bet to become successful, we really don't know how to evaluate if we're about to get there, right? And oftentimes in practice, this leads to evaluating the progress of a product becomes something that people do based on opinions from people inside your organization. That's not really supported by any evidence of traction, right? So that's one problem. The second problem is you often get product organizations that invest in sometimes you invest in a large number of products, of which only a fraction of them have profitability or even hope of profitability, right? Margins may be low, or you make it's kind of a low threshold to go big, but it's a large threshold to shut something down, right? Because we don't see it being a part of our business future, which in the end is the core reason for product to kind of exist, right? And the third problem is, just what I mentioned there, right? We can get kind of all over the place when it comes to what we invest in and how we evaluate from a business point of view if we have a good chance of reaching business success or not. Okay, so a couple of things you can try at this level is And again, this is between product and the rest of the organization. How is product going to be able to contribute to the future vision of the company? Try to identify, if we bet on a new product to be developed, what's some minimum success criteria, and get clear on this, right? What's our targeted revenue, either per product or for like a group of products, and try to make some ballpark estimates based on those numbers, right? So for example, if our target is, I don't know, 10 million euro, if we're making an investment for a couple of years and then we get to 10 million, what does that mean? Well, we can kind of make a simple equation, right? We can say, well, how many customers do we need to have to reach that number, and how much must those customers be paying to us per year, right? So maybe it's 20,000 customers paying 1,000 euro a year, okay? Okay, let's say it's that, right? And how many of those customers are we going to lose every year in churn? And what does that mean in terms of how many new customers we need to onboard to kind of offset that, to kind of stay at that revenue level in a sustainable way? Key being sustainable way, right? This having this level of understanding, and it can be back of a napkin, in the beginning, calculations that you can refine. It allows your product organization to go and test for this. Can we find, our target is 20,000 customers. Can we find 5 customers willing to pay at this value level? Is that possible? What did they say when we tried, right? A lot of times you can try stuff like that out before you have the full product built. And you can do similar experiments around other areas of that ballpark estimate. And if the answer is no, they won't pay at that level, can we tweak this model, or how we kind of make sense of how we can get to those revenue numbers? And if the answer is, you know what, I don't see this happening, right? Then we can make the call with, it's never easy, it's never fun to shut something down. You kind of feel it in the body. But you can say, it's very, very unlikely we're going to see product success with this product. So let's shut it down. Let's free up the capacity to bet on anything and start betting on something else. Maybe another customer need, another segment of the market that has unknown potential, because that's better than certain failure, right? And the third thing is, if this is negotiated between product organization and the rest of the organization, and kind of made clear and upfront, well, then you can tell product, well, you're actually accountable for developing traction, meaning what progress can you make to kind of validate these numbers in terms of a business perspective, to kind of get us closer. Can we onboard new customers? What's our hypothesis of how fast we can kind of get into different segments? And you can kind of measure progress that way, instead of the pieces that we've heard more about earlier today in different talks. So that's on the division responsibility level that I would advise to consider. In terms of product direction, so imagine now we have our product organization, right, in the city block. We're zooming in gradually, right? It's one of those movies where you zoom in from, the galaxy into you, right, the person. So imagine that. One common situation is that when you're giving product a direction, you're saying something like, build a new product for the existing needs that our existing customer base are having, right? So a common situation here is, it's basically saying, a lot of orgs say, go build me a new product for this market with the, or rather, build us a product that does this for our customers, right? And a common situation for this could be an organization that's had this big flagship products, a mature business. It's kind of getting dated, so we want to create a new product that's more modern, but we don't really want to lose any business. We don't want to lose any customers. We're so comfortable in the position we're in. So we end up saying, I want the new product to do everything that the old product did, but we also want to have this new stuff in, right? And we're unwilling to give anything up, right? That's pretty common. The second is when we actually try to make some sort of a plan on and how we sequence, how we're gonna build a new product or kind of make it real. We're targeting all the customers in the market, right? So we're saying all of these customers that we have relationships with, or all of these customers that we desire to have, we want to kind of take them all in one bite, right? We want to have them, we don't want to leave anybody out. That's another variant of this, right? Or a special case of this would be you're overemphasizing product as a platform, saying if we just build a product that can solve any problem, we will be successful because so many customers will find this product and find it useful, right? So of course the fallacy here is, our customer actually going to search for something, some way of building it themselves? And if they do, if they have to create their own solution, probably not. They're not willing to pay a premium because they really want to have somebody else solve it for them and pay more for that. And the other, challenge, of course, is that it's make the scope bigger, right? So, and the third very common situation is that you're asking the targets that product in reality have are what's going to be delivered when, right? He also mentioned this in his talk. It's really common, and it's really about how can we see progress in terms of something happening and becoming available, and it's really guiding attention towards that, right? So what's problematic about this? Well, first of all, if you're building a new product for your existing customers and the needs that you're already working with them on, you're too defensive, right? There's not enough innovation in what you're attempting to do, and the potential for success is much lower. And why is that? Well, I think you need to ask yourself, if you're trying to build a new product for something that you've already been needs that you've already been serving for quite some time, are we investing in a market where margins are declining or not? A lot of times the answer is yes, right? And the second problematic question is, if we are doing that, if we ask our clients or customers, what are your top needs? What are the biggest challenges that you see for success? The needs that we are targeting, will they be on their top list or not? A lot of times, maybe they're on the top list, probably not at the highest levels of the top list. Maybe it's not even on the top list, because you're really investing in a mature market where there's a lot of competition, right? So when it comes to developing new products, again, backbone for the future of your business, there needs to be a level of willingness to let go and stepping into something new. And oftentimes that is kind of missing in the setup of the direction, right? Second problem, it's kind of slower learning and traction, because if you're really not willing to go for some segments of the markets early, you're really trying to make everybody in your potential market happy at the same time. It's going to make it harder for you to recruit people to test things on, because who do we pick? Traction is likely to be lower because the scope is realistically very large, and it becomes this kind of all or nothing feel to it, right? We need to kind of replace everything. Like if it's the example I mentioned before, like, well, maybe we need to replace everything that the old product did that was so successful, right? So again, step into something new, go into multiple bets, and consider a different path. The third one is actually really important. I want to highlight this one. When you're giving product organization direction, you really want to guide their attention. So again, the deliverables or timelines. If you don't meet targets, will people raise an eyebrow or not? The things that actually raises the eyebrows are the real targets, right, in your organization. So you may think you are guiding attention towards success, but in reality, what people really pay the most attention to is how people respond the strongest to in your organization, right? So you really need to consider how you guide people's attention, what really matters. So what can you try? Well, number one, try researching. If you have a targeted market, a type of product, right? That's the kind of, guardrails that we're giving people. Research what the top customers' needs actually are today. Explore what their top challenges actually are, and target one of the top three. That would be my suggestion, right? Target something where maybe your customers find it really important to address something. They may have tried addressing that problem themselves or need, right? Maybe they're searching for a good way. And oftentimes these are areas where there's less competition. and it's likely that the customers may be willing to pay more, right? So you have a higher potential for higher margins. Maybe it's more challenging, but the potential to step into something new that might be very fruitful in the future is high, right? Marcus mentioned that product is hard. You could see it as risky, right? 42% of startups fail because there's no market for their product. This is what we're talking about, right? Actual demand. The second is sequence customer segments. That's a very powerful thing you can do. So why is that important? Well, if you have too many segments, too many of the customers at the same time, it kind of requires more people to be involved, and it makes it much harder to have a short distance to kind of explore those needs. So if we start with fewer, more narrow segments to begin with, we can do the ballpark estimates that I talked about in the beginning in a smaller set of customer people that we work together with, and kind of try to ballpark if we can get the business side working. And we can also do other type of validation, right? It becomes more manageable, and you can work with the smaller product team for longer as well. So anything that helps you create focus and drive traction in terms of validation and kind of shorten that loop is going to be helpful, and sequencing customer segments is definitely one of those things. And the last one, super important. He also had his whole talk about this. If you haven't seen it, check it out, about opportunity solution tree, and how a real world example can look like. So choose product targets that are business objectives. And what I mean by this is it's clearly valuable to the end customer what you're targeting, right? It needs to be like very short step, right? So I'll give you an example. So SpaceX, for example, they want to send people to Mars. Crazy people, right? They have a product organization that's building the vehicle, right? What's the objective of product at SpaceX? Well, it's one thing, right? How do we optimize and minimize the cost to get 1 ton of payload from Earth up to orbit, and in the end to Mars, right? How can we minimize that number? Anything that can help us make progress towards that is something we're willing to explore and try and build into the vehicle. Yes, we build a vehicle, but the targets are not to build a space vehicle that can have this much thrust or weight to thrust ratio or anything. That's kind of secondary. Can we drive that cost number down? It's clear that that's valuable, clear that's enabler to exploring space in a new way, right? So what can you do in your organization, kind of give product targets like that? That's going to guide the tension. That's going to put the needle of progress on kind of things that's going to help you, right? The last thing, I'm going to say a few things about operationalization. It's not the focus of this talk, but some of the more common things that we see that has a high impact when it comes to actually organize the day-to-day connection between people of different disciplines, how we have our way of working, how do we connect multiple teams together, how do we have different disciplines working together so we can realize product objective, or like create the cohesive customer and user experience and get the design intent into the actual impact of the product. This is what we're talking about, right? So number one, not enough evidence of value. So there are many things you can test for and work in terms of validating. Marcus mentioned a lot of things in his product discovery talk. I'm highlighting value because that's the one that I see the most vacant or are not existent for the most of the time. So what is the evidence that we're going to see people willing to pay if we put this stuff into the product, right? A lot of times that's very, very far away from what people are actually doing, right? The second is we're usually saying discovery disjointed from delivery. You may have a team of people researching here, and then there's people building a product here, and they're separated by distance. They're not collaborating. The insights that are gained from research they can be like 12 months or 10 months, and then maybe something makes into the product, and people work on the product weren't part of the research, haven't really, they got a report or at best, or maybe they just got some pieces in their backlog to build, right? And what really happens then, you miss out on a lot of innovation, and the lead times become really long, right? So you become slower traction, slower from insight to impact. And the third one is no tactical rhythm. So you may have agile teams working on products. They have their weekly cadence or bi-weekly cadence. Everything is going fine at the team level. And then you have your big plans, but there's not really any rhythm that's shared at the product level in between. So you get problems with dependency management, multiple teams waiting on each other. You build different features, but the very well designed product experience and design, your designers have a great user experience in mind. It doesn't really get realized in the product, and you kind of fall short. So a third problem is you often get a big difference between what you're actually capable of accomplishing in the intermediate term. So intermediate, I mean months, bi-monthly, maybe quarterly. That's what I mean by tactical. And you often have a lot of wishful thinking. So you believe we can do this, and you learn slow, and you underestimate things, and it becomes a crunch, stress, bugs, overshoot, right? I think we've all seen this before. What you can try, have some discipline to test for value before committing to building something into the product. Do we have any circumstantial evidence that if we put this big piece in, will customer be willing to pay more, or do they want it? Are they willing to either buy it or willing to give up something of value in order to have access to it, right? Actually test. Number two, create a tactical rhythm and integrate both discovery work and delivery work for your product team. When I say product team, if you have multiple teams working on the product, bring them together on a regular basis, plan and work based on shared outcomes for that time period. Research stuff, build stuff, and measure stuff, right? And have that kind of connection. The third and last one, once you actually complete work and it's in the hands of your customers, measure. Are we getting the impact that we expected? Is the customer seeing this as valuable or not? And pay close attention to that. Are we actually reducing the cost to bring payload into space? So that's all I had. If you have any questions, type them in chat. As a short summary, division responsibility, what's product supposed to be working on as the responsibility, and what is the other parts of organization working on? How do we give clear direction at the whole product organization level or for your product? And then how we make things happen day to day, week to week, monthly to monthly, and so forth in the operationalization. So I'd be happy to take some questions now. Jenny, help us out. If there's anybody who has the first question, I'm willing to do what I can.
Yes. Yeah, please unmute and help me to give Mathias an applause.
Awesome.
Maybe I should make a comment. I wanted to kind of, it's been so dark here in Sweden and, cold and COVID and everything. So I wanted to bring this talk out in the open in like a spring session. So this is a screenshot. This is a picture from my home city. So I'm hoping to sit here in the spring when maybe with some of my colleagues. It's at Djurgården. So I'm waving from this pleasure place of maybe having a drink or so.
Yay.
Yeah. Any?
Thank you for the invitations. Any questions for Mathias? We have a few minutes before we end the session, so. Yes.
Yassi has a hand up. Do you want to ask with voice?
Yeah, I can do so. I mean, I think, thank you, by the way. It was really awesome hearing it. I think, it's been, everyone has had really super interesting talks. I think one of the ones you raised, I think it was such a good thing that, when we're disjointed from the actual business or impact, I think that's, when we end up in delivery focus. What's your advice to, PMs or product people that end up in that situation, or developers where they're just asked to deliver and are just disjointed?
Yeah, so as always, you need to work within your sphere of influence. But if let's say you're a product manager, I think I would invite you to test how far-reaching your ability to influence actually is. A lot of times I think you have more pull and say that maybe people are using. So that's one. Number two, if let's say you don't build a product that does this for our customers. Let's say that's your situation. You could still ask the questions like, what's our revenue targets, and or kind of work with people in your organization that and answer the question, if this product is a success 5 years from now, what does that look like? And then you can test that by raising and lowering the bar of your story or the numbers you present to kind of gauge where that is. And if it's a very large gap between that and what would actually be viable, then you can challenge it. You can say like, well, hang on, if we're betting this much money in these 3 products that we're betting on, and together they're going to have only 1/10 of the revenue we're pulling in today, are we really going to have a successful business? What else is in, is this the real target, right? I'm not sure how to explain it, but I guess try to reach out and talk to and kind of negotiate, see if you can make that picture more clear, because if it becomes more clear, you can kind of put it in front of your team saying, hey guys, this is where we need to get, and kind of involve people from there.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have 2 more questions and 4 minutes before the last closing keynote starts. I will paste the link to room 1 for anyone that needs to leave. But Rui, let's hear your question. Oh, you're muted.
You're muted, or yeah, we can't hear you.
Maybe your microphone is not really...
If your microphone is not working, maybe you can type your question in chat and we will read it out loud.
Change your Microsoft settings for the PC, no?
I think we had a question from Pontus as well. Are there any methods or frameworks that you would suggest to drive the way of working you are suggesting?
Methods and frameworks. Well, to do most of what I talked about, do you really need a lot of methods and framework, right? Maybe that's what Elias was talking about. How can we make it not less about the frameworks and more about kind of getting started, right? So I'm not sure which parts of my talk that you're referring to, but if you're talking about ballparking the revenue of your future product, I think you can do a lot there just by sitting down and talking about it with people who understand the market and the situation that you're having. You can check out. If you want to have something comprehensive, you can Lean Startup by Ash. I can't ever pronounce his last name. Mora. If somebody knows how to pronounce it, or Running Lean. Sorry, I should say Running Lean. Very good content on the topic. Very, very much related. So.
Okay. We have 2 minutes to answer Rui's questions. It's in the chat there.
Okay, Rui asks, B2B markets, bigger customers waiting for some kind of commitments, how to balance that with discovery and research towards the best solution. So when it comes to business, business to consumer is different from business to business to some extent. One of the things that could be different that you can explore is something having customer development programs. So first of all, selecting the segments I talked about, who would be your likely earlier adopters in the segment, focus on those first. These are people who are likely to be willing to pay a premium. People are likely to have tried to explore, hack their own, so to speak. That's one thing. And the second is saying, hey, would you be like, and usually these are people who are willing to talk about these needs because they're looking for ways to kind of meet them, right? And then working with them over time, maybe 5 or 6 of them is a good number. Start with 3 and then go up to 6. And if you can meet those customers' needs, and if those customers are a good representative of one segment in the targeted market that you're having, then you're going to be likely to have a good problem solution fit if you can meet those needs, and they would be likely to be your early adopters to the product. So if you can meet their needs, then you also at the same time are kind of developing your first customers and advocates for your products if you succeed. So that's one path you can take. You can read more about that in Marty Kagan's book Inspired. There's a chapter on that.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Good questions, and thank you for your session, Mathias. Let's all head into room number 1 now, and we will end this together. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.